All right, here we go. As I am sharing the screen and getting ready to share the presentation, I'm going to invite all of us to take 3 big, deep breaths from the depth of our diaphragm. Welcome. Thanks for arriving with yourself and with all of us. Courtney and I are really excited to share a little bit about how we can work with trauma, coming back home to our highest self, thus coming back home to Earth and into a reciprocal relationship with all that is. I'll just reintroduce myself for anybody that missed last meeting and that doesn't know me. I'm Cheyenne. I am a microdose advocate, psychedelic therapy advocate, a yogi, a trauma survivor, an Appalachian mama, a musician, a multifaceted being that loves to share space and explore the mysteries of life. And the co-facilitator, Courtney, is a beautiful human that I'll let her introduce herself. Yeah.
Thanks, Cheyenne. I'm Courtney Murphy. I am so incredibly thrilled to be with you all today. I am in my going into my second year of my counseling program. So trauma is a really, really incredibly near and dear piece of my heart. I'm Mountain Mama as well, yoga teacher, and co-creator of knowledge with you all today. So yeah, just super grateful and thankful for everyone here.
And I'd love for you all to introduce yourself if you're feeling up for it. Maybe we can say the name that you'd like to be called by, and a word describing the weather that you are feeling. Go for it, popcorn style.
Hey, I'm Hannah. My friends call me Hank. I'm over here in California. I'm at work on a construction site right now. Sorry, I can't show you, but it is beautiful and sunny in Southern California right now.
Oh, I love that. I'll give another example too. I'm feeling like some sun rays are hitting my skin, but it's also starting to drizzle some rain, so it's partly cloudy, and there's some cool and warm temps mixing together.
Yeah,
sunny and warm
God.
here. Right. Yep.
Yeah, nice. Sunny and warm. Is that what you said, Patrick?
It's sunny and warm. Yeah.
Nice.
But nice.
Love it.
I'm Chandler. It's a bit gloomy here.
The ramps are coming up.
Yay, ramp season. Oh, I'm jealous.
I love the beautiful things spring is bringing us. It's a little bit of a hot, cold here.
Which is what humans tend to be like, you know, in our minds and the society that we live in. And so the individual self inside and the experience and environment outside of self, the community, the ecosystem, it's all very complex system. So individual trauma is a toxic byproduct that comes from a larger root system connected to many variables. And we live in a day and age where it's hard to identify those variables and sort through the mess so that we can heal and process. So we're going to talk a little bit about ways in which we can do that and how it is so intercorrelated and connected in an ecosystem with all these variables, starting with the individual, going to the community, society at large, to the land, to the ecosystem, and then backwards. Once we heal the ecosystem, we're healing the land, healing society, community, and ourselves as individuals. Welcome, Grandma. So, who is still connected to the land? I went ahead and just looked up the definition of Indigenous peoples. I've had the beautiful opportunity to work with some Indigenous communities, and I'm still on a quest of finding out my own ancestry. So I just wanted to see what at large our society defined Indigenous peoples as. And they say that it's the earliest known inhabitants of an area, especially one that's been colonized by a now dominant group, which is predominantly everywhere in the world. But there are 5,000 tribes everywhere in the world except for Antarctica. And the word indigenous actually came from the Europeans when the Europeans colonized land. So that was interesting. This is a photo from Mexico where I had the opportunity to engage in Aztec culture and ceremony. And the Aztecs are also some of the first peoples to really come out and bring psilocybin into other cultures and traditions. So peoples are usually described as indigenous when they maintain traditions or other aspects of an early culture that is associated with the first inhabitants of a given region. Not all indigenous peoples share this characteristic. Some have been colonized by not having their culture in their language, their dress. Some have settled in territories that are not theirs anymore, or they're still in their territory, and some live a nomadic life. Yeah, as I said, there's approximately 5,000 indigenous nations throughout the world, and I just want to say that I'm calling from Wabanaki land today, and there's a beautiful tool to find out what land you are currently sitting on that I'll share at the end of our time today. And for now, we're going to go into the indigeneity of psilocybin itself by watching this 7-minute video.
Has produced some truly amazing findings. Study after study have been demonstrating that psilocybin has incredible potential in treating a broad range of mental illnesses. But just how long have humans been consuming psilocybin mushrooms? In what ways did our ancestors use this substance, and what can we learn from the traditions of the past? All these questions and more coming up. Welcome back to the Myco Meditations YouTube channel. My name is Jonas, and I'm a facilitator here at Myco Meditations. And in this video, we'll be looking at the ancient history of psilocybin use. It's pretty amazing to think that at one point in the distant past, one of our ancestors was the very first person to consume psilocybin mushrooms. We can only imagine what that was like, or when or where that occurred, but there's actually an entire field of study dedicated to this topic. It's called ethnomycology, the study of the historical uses and sociological impact of fungi. Ethnomycologists have uncovered some really incredible archaeological evidence that humans have been consuming psychedelic mushrooms for many thousands of years all over the globe. For example, one of the oldest representations of mushrooms was discovered in Africa in cave paintings at Tassili, Algeria. These images are dated to between 7,000 to 9,000 years old and depict several scenes involving mushrooms. One image displays several figures holding up mushrooms in their right hands, and we can see parallel dotted lines connecting each mushroom to the top of the figures' heads, possibly portraying the mushrooms as a source of knowledge. In another image, a large masked figure is shown with mushrooms growing from its hands, forearms, and thighs. Traveling over to Spain, the Selva Pascuala mural provides some of the earliest evidence of psychedelic mushroom use in Europe. This image was created about 6,000 years ago, and we can see what appear to be a row of mushrooms painted onto the rock, which may indicate that these mushrooms were honored and regarded as extremely important. In Australia, we find even older depictions of mushrooms and mushroom-like figures at the Bradshaw Rock Art, dated to 10,000 BCE, which is more than twice the age of Stonehenge. And here we can see what appear to be several figures with mushroom-shaped heads. Traveling over to Siberia, a region that's home to the Amanita muscaria mushroom, we find the Pegtamel petroglyphs, estimated to be around 3,000 years old, where once again we can see several figures with mushroom-shaped heads, which are similar in shape to the Bradshaw rock art all the way over in Australia. And it's interesting to note some of these similarities in the mushroom iconography from all over the world. Now, all of this evidence can be somewhat controversial because we can only take our best guess as to what these ancient artists really intended to communicate. However, traveling to Mexico and Central America, we can say with much greater certainty that the use of psychoactive mushrooms was very prevalent in Mesoamerican societies for thousands of years. Archaeological evidence indicates that the ancient Olmec, Zapotec, Mayan, and Aztec societies consumed hallucinogenic mushrooms as a sacrament in their shamanic and religious ceremonies. For example, in Guatemala, we've discovered more than 200 of these so-called mushroom stones, some dating back to around 3,000 years ago. Researchers believe that these stones were used in shamanic rituals as part of an ancient Mayan mushroom cult. The Aztecs also consumed mushrooms, which they referred to as teonanacatl, which roughly translates to flesh of the gods, indicating once again that this substance was revered and treated as extremely sacred and important. All throughout Central America, we've discovered thousands of sculptures over the years featuring images of mushrooms, which is evidence of continued ritualistic use of mushrooms over the span of many centuries. So after reviewing all of this evidence, it's interesting to note how far-reaching this ancient mushroom art is. I mean, it goes without saying that this video hasn't even begun to scratch the surface, and yet already we've traveled to many corners of the globe, from Africa to Australia to Siberia to Mexico. And in all accounts, the mushroom was clearly honored as a symbol of great importance. It's safe to say that psychedelic mushrooms have been consumed for many thousands of years as tools for healing and transformation. As a result, it's likely that these psychedelic mushrooms have played a significant role in our collective social and cultural evolution as a species. In fact, the famous researcher and psychonaut Terence McKenna theorized in his stoned ape theory that hundreds of thousands of years ago, psychedelic mushrooms may have served as a catalyst for the development of the human brain and higher cognitive functions. And whether or not that's true, this has been a core part of the human experience for many thousands of years. This is part of our collective inheritance, and it really invites reflection on the question of why are psilocybin mushrooms illegal in most modern societies across the globe? And as we look towards the future of psilocybin and psychedelic assisted therapies, especially at this juncture, at this point in human history, it seems more important than ever that we continue to reflect on our past, on our ancient roots, and learn from the wisdom of our ancestors.
So needless to say, psilocybin has been a centerpiece of human society for many, many thousands of years. And as we move forward with science gatekeeping some information and coming up with studies, it's becoming more integrated into our society today, but it was always there. Before we move forward, I'm going to go back to slide 3 and let Courtney just say a bit of her piece on this as well.
Can do. So here for this piece, I'm just kind of focus on the image and just kind of talking a little bit about native versus invasive plants, and kind of comparing us to nature in that sense of indigenous versus the colonizing movement, and really seeing how native plants such as the trees here really leave space for one another to breathe, to grow, to adapt, to evolve, whereas more invasive species are looking to smother one another in order to survive. So I just think that that's a very pertinent, lovely example that we see in nature of how we can work with the environment or we can work against it.
Beautifully said. So this is Maria Sabina. She is very famous for introducing psilocybin into the Western world. In 1957, Gordon Wasson, an ethnomycologist, famously appeared in the Time magazine after he took a trip to Mexico, where he took some trips, guided trips with Maria Sabina. And after that article blew up in Times magazine, a lot of Westerners came knocking at our door for the same experience, education, and eye-opening, heart-opening, expansive experience. And a lot of people like John Lennon and famous people showed up, which was beautiful for them and for us in the Western world. But unfortunately, she was deeply penalized, and her community took her in prison, and they burnt her house down, and they imprisoned her son. So this is just an example that I think that we should take moving forward as we are taking this medicine more widespread in the United States of America, to give recognition for what was and try to make some reparations and healing relations towards the indigenous peoples. Yeah, so because of colonization, we live in a society that's lost its true foundation. Many people aren't considered native, and we're all mostly mutts with ancestors from all over the world, which is turning into a beautiful thing if we walk through it with honesty and reciprocity, and presence. But there isn't a lot of presence, and there isn't a lot of awareness around this. So a lot of us feel lost and empty and never satiated, never full. And we're treating this land as the colonizers treated it. So indigenous cultures were dismantled and taken advantage of by outsiders who didn't even know the ecosystem, the land, or the traditions. The intention behind colonization was almost always about getting power and security, and the original ways of life of the lands that have been colonized were not only disrespected and not considered, but they were almost completely ignored. Thus, the ancient knowledge of living in harmony with our ecosystems was taken away, which in turn took away the ability for us to create equilibrium inside and within our communities. So now we live in a day that's more take, because I need, because I have more, who can get the most, who can have the best car, who can make the most money an hour, because we ultimately don't feel safe in our environment. And I also just want to say that these are all opinions, some of it's scientific research, but most of it's opinions, and we're all qualified to take what we need and leave the rest. Oh, wait a minute. Whoa, sorry about that. The end. All right. Oh, you got a sneak peek through the whole thing.
Love it. Like we said, co-creation of knowledge. You know what we know. So yeah, so just looking at what this mentality, this take, more, never satisfied mentality has kind of came from in the United States. This part kind of, veering a little bit more on the science-y side of things. Kind of looking at both the small and large ways that we as individuals have kind of been numbed out by fear, or the fear of being harmed outside of ourselves has kind of, led us to this greed mentality that we see very perpetuated in society. And so kind of taking a deep dive into the extended version of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. So we start at the very, very bottom at physiological needs, and we build our way up. So until we have those physiological needs met and those safety needs met, everything else can't truly authentically build on from there. So we kind of see, we call it D love and B love. So B love is that growth, that authentic love that we really want to see, that is nurturing one another, showing up for one another in amazing ways. Whereas this D love is what we kind of consider as fake love. We consider it as love that comes out due to our needs. It can at sometimes be manipulative, but it comes from a place of deep need for something. And I say needs at the top here in quotes because just because it was formerly a need doesn't mean that it's still a need. So we get ourselves into these stuck cycles of thinking that we need something because we previously needed it. And if we go on to the next slide, I think it kind of really kind of culminates that lack of trust. So just as nature trusts each other, all of its parts to show up for each other each and every day, so must we rebuild our trust in one another in order to ensure that when someone shows up for us, it will meet a need. So
Thank you, Courtney.
A little bit of your thunder there on 9, but
yeah, creating reciprocity within the relationships that we share with outside energies in the world. That includes the more than human world with each other. And to be able to do that, we have to make sure that our basic needs are met. And so the wild parts of our true nature that have a deep belonging with the natural cycles of the seasons and Gaia's rhythms, Earth rhythms are the best connectors to the beautiful reality we live in. They're the best connectors to building a foundation of healing. And as we've learned, mushrooms are an ancient medicinal connector from all regions of the world. Psilocybin has a beautiful way when microdosing and especially macrodosing of seeing the aliveness in all things around you. My last macro dose was only a gram. And, a lot of people take 2 to 3, or a hero's journey is 7 grams. But I took 1 gram and I walked through the forest with 2 of my friends as the sun was setting, and the trees began walking with me, and the moss was alive, and I could see the trees breathing. So as we continue to learn about this medicine, to take this medicine, I invite all of us to respect the ancient guides that are with them still and allow it to lead us back to our ancestral wisdom, our ancestral knowledge, and ultimately lead us back to ourselves. What we can remember, whether we're indigenous to a certain land or not, that we are all indigenous to this earth, and we can remember that and unite around being of earth. Every person, every ancient culture has trauma, because this is the essence of being human. and even in the natural cycles of Earth, you know, we watch a lion prance on a gazetteer. Is that the right? Not a gazetteer, a map. You know. Anyways, I'm not very good with my African
Are you
animals.
thinking of gazelle?
Thank you, Hannah. Yes. As a lion pounces on a gazelle, that's a trauma-induced situation for the other gazelles, but this is the essence of life, right? The yin, the yang, the darkness, the light, the sun, the moon. And so if we can embrace this and embrace the mystery of life, that will create so much more breadth and room for our existence being joyful, and for healing our past generations and healing for our future generations, but most importantly, having the ability to be here present now.
So I just kind of want to start off this slide by saying, don't get it twisted. I respect and love me some science. I really do. But when we really look at scientific healing versus energetic healing, we really see why some of the scientific healing's focus can really get us stuck in certain types of thinking. So on the scientific healing side of things, it really puts our own personal brain at the center of understanding. It is focused on proving versus disproving something. There's a lot of gatekeeping in the knowledge. So only those who have paid for the access or the education to understand that knowledge are really privy to it. But on the positive side of things, it really does help us make sense of our world in a way that we have difficulty conceptualizing, because as human beings, we like to stick things in boxes just so we can understand it. But on the energetic side of things, we take all of those boxes away. So we put nature back at the center of understanding all of the ways that it's intertwined and interwoven with one another, all of that connection. It permits that intuition that helps us trust our gut and return to those self-healing properties. And it really gives to all who are willing to receive. Anyone who is willing to go out there and put in the work is going to receive from that energetic experience. So I really like this quote by Indigenous researcher Sean Wilson. I'm sorry. Research is a ceremony, and so is everything that we do that shares in the ongoing creation of our universe.
Connection and joy. So I just want to bring back the previous mushroom circle where we looked at the mycelium underground connecting with one another, the big web of sending nutrients to different roots and just allowing the communication between different plants to be fluid. Looks pretty much the same as our neurological brain and our neurons connecting, as well as the interweb, the internet, and the cosmic universe. To me, it's just mind-blowing. And when I'm having a triggered moment or a bad day, that's one thing that I like to remember. And in my microdosing rituals, I always have affirmations, even if I'm not microdosing. Throughout my yogic journey, it's been something that's been incorporated. Looking at myself in the mirror, maybe not every morning, but you know, when I do, I say I am worthy, I am grounded, I am at home, I am love, I am light, I am joy, reinforcing those things. But it particularly with microdosing, when we take this medicine, we're opening up new neurological pathways, we're opening up new opportunities to create behavioral patterns that we hadn't had before, new ways of thinking, new perspectives. So saying these things out loud and really looking at yourself and writing them down is a really beautiful part to embrace and how you go about your life with or without the medicine. So I just want to bring some things outside of microdosing that are helpful in feeling more connected to your area and to your land. Getting to know the indigenous history of your area is a great way to understand your land's story and your community story, your culture story. Is there a local tribe near you? If so, do they have events open to the public? This is a beautiful opportunity to create a reciprocal relation with the indigenous peoples, to be humbled, to learn, get to know your local watershed system. Where do the streams, the rivers connect, lakes, where maybe there's some water testing going on in your area, maybe some water is struggling, maybe some water is pristine, maybe there's a natural spring near you that you can drink from, groundwater. I got to grow up part of my childhood in West Virginia going to the spring with my grandparents. It's part of my favorite time to visit them is to go there and literally just get water from the ground. So understanding where water comes from and respecting it more and protecting it. Same goes with flora and fauna, which are plants and animals, insects too. Maybe some species in your community are particularly interesting to you, and you can do some research or some extra time to go out in nature and observe them. And maybe you have a passion for planting and or want to learn how to plant and dig your feet and your hands into the ground and plant some plants that help the pollinators thrive, which in turn helps local farmers thrive and support your local farmers. And when you buy anything, try for it to be local. And as I've been going to the farmers market for some time now, and sometimes I go to the grocery store too, I'm finding that sometimes the farmers market prices are actually lower than the grocery store, like eggs, for instance. So I just want to bring that up around accessibility. And at any time, any moment, feel free to hop in and add some things. We could go on and on about different ways to connect, going to ecstatic dances, to square dances. This is one of my favorite quotes and a beautiful butterfly I met in Costa Rica. As is the human body, so is the cosmic body. As is the human mind, so is the cosmic mind. As is the microcosm, so is the macrocosm. As is the atom, so is the universe. We are the microcosm of the macrocosm that is nature. So this comes from Ayurveda, which is a sister science to yoga. I believe that basically, I am you, you are me. When I heal myself, I am helping to heal the world. I'm helping to heal you. Healing of the land and the ecosystems heals us. This was a part of the Aztec ceremony that I got to be a part of, where we danced and we drummed, and it was so healing. I came back to the United States of America thinking, why do we go out to bars for socializing and drinking and having fun in that way? Why don't we still dance around fires? Why isn't that a norm? Why don't we have drumming circles all over the world? But it's starting to happen. It really is. Healing from the outside in, energetic connection to your present environment. So some ways of doing that are studying the origins of being and integrating into the more than human world. My grandpa likes to, I don't think he'd mind me telling you guys this, but he hikes a lot. He hikes for miles and miles, and then he will put his hammock up that he backpacked in a forest, and he'll just sit and be with the land, and that's something that I have incorporated into my runs. When I'm in the middle of the forest, sometimes I'll just drop and I'll sit. And I had a college course where we had sit spots where we go to the same spot every single day with our journal, and we just be completely silent and observe and be with the aliveness of the world, which helps us respect and understand it a little bit more, or be with mystery and more care. And also listening to other people's stories helps us understand the complexity and get out of our own head, and share a synergetic connection of understanding or exploring flow state embodiment. Getting into our bodies allows us to get out of our heads, and the flow state also, like biking, running, yoga, walking, allows us for our neurological brains to heal as well. So it's a little similar to how psilocybin works with the brain. It helps, yeah, it just helps you be more present in the most simplest terms. And community involvement. Doing all of these things while microdosing almost always helps bring in more presence. Courtney, I don't know if you want to add any more ways and tools, or if anyone in the group wants to hop in.
Yeah, sure. I'll say one quick little thing and then let anybody else share if you'd like. But yeah, all of these things that Cheyenne's talking about are those things that help us de-stress and get the front brain back online. We talked a little bit about the hand model of the brain last time. And when our feelings are big, we lose all sense of like decision making and reason. And so mushrooms, and combined with these lovely, lovely tools, are a great, great resource just to help us get back in that thinking brain and be able to apply the things that mushroom is really helping us build deeper connections about.
And knowing that we're humans, so there's always going to be the ebb and flow of being super present, being really grateful, an attitude of gratitude, to stress, crazy shit is happening, too busy, and and that is just the way it goes. But having more tools and practicing them and integrating them allows us to live a more balanced and present life. Healing from the inside out. So trying to make this an experience of sharing that when we do work on the inside, it helps the outside, vice versa. A big thing that I want to hit on is you are what you eat, and it's so true. Local fresh foods, whatever energy is in your food, you're ingesting. So if I buy spinach from the grocery store and it says organic, it's still, I mean, it'll stay good in your fridge for how long? Because it's got some preservatives on it or pesticides, and that's just how it has to be done when food travels. But if you get spinach from your local farmer, you're getting the nutrients straight from your land. And the big thing about this is the serotonin, which is one of our happy chemicals, and our a way that our body helps us sleep and find balance, which we'll actually get more into later on. It lives within your GI tract. So I don't know if any of you have ever heard that your gut health is your mind health. That is where that comes from. Therapy, so many different kinds of modalities: meditation, breath work, pranayama, writing. Let that shit out. One of my friends was like, every single night I write. We were talking about ways in which to produce music, and he just said, it really just, even if it's just 2 sentences, and that's a practice. Microdosing helps us look within, sweating it out, detoxing.
So, like Cheyenne said, the gut produces 95% of the body's serotonin. And when we're talking about needing more connection, serotonin is our body's messenger chemical. It is what allows all of the good, happy feelings to exist, of course, but it's really what is governing all of these different cycles in our body. So everything from our sleep to our pain management to our appetite to the different cycles in our body, regulation in our body, every sexual desire. I mean, all of the different functions of the body that are essential to our well-being are all being integrated with serotonin. So if we're ill and the body is stressed by system imbalance, during that time, we're really, really unlikely to feel safe. So heading on to the next slide, without safety, we really lose all of the access to that front brain. We lose all of that higher order thinking. And so something happens and our body's valiant security guard, I call her Amy G. Dalla, the amygdala, gets really, really overworked without the help of the cortex, without the help of that front brain. And she can't tell the brain if the threat is real or if it's imaginary. And so I like to kind of think about this overactive security guard response as what we imagine as the impacts of trauma. So it's kind of like this little thief that comes along and steals safety because you've had maybe a couple unsafe experiences, and now the valiant security guard is just so overworked that they think that all of those experiences are now prone to not being safe. And so when we are able to get that prefrontal cortex back online, she can have a break and kind of gets to redistribute that weight load. And so getting into some of the more sciencey pieces, this is what we refer to as a process called methylation. And so methylation is very interesting because, using a personal example, for instance, a lot of the women in my family struggle with bipolar disorder. And I say some because we have, some women who are coping perfectly fine with life and others who are really, really struggling with this mental health condition. And if you really look at the reasons why, it comes down to this methylation. So what is this? This is basically just a gene that already exists in your body that's lying dormant that gets triggered by an event. So basically a carbon molecule and an oxygen molecule bind to that cell, and it just changes the way the gene is expressed in your body. But the really, really cool thing about that is, although methylation can trigger some of the mental health conditions that you see below, as well as some physical health conditions that are really based upon some of the generational impacts on that DNA structure, we've really started recently seeing in the science that this is a reversible process. Scientifically, we see that it's a reversible process. I think energetic healing wise, this is something that we've known for a long time, but it is kind of fun to watch the science catch up to it. And then when we look at microdosing and how it works intracellular with this 5-HT2A receptor to restore serotonin production, rather than just giving us a little boost of serotonin like we might see an SSRI doing over the counter. And this is really, really powerful for what we're describing as increasing all of those neural pathways. We're seeing when you take a microdose or a macro dose, what we know is that psychedelic experience is the increased neural pathways firing at once. So this is why this experience is very different from when we're not under the guise of psychedelic mushrooms. So when we engage in this process, that's why it can kind of be either an enlightening process or a little bit sometimes alarming process, because it's increasing awareness and a lot of things firing at once. So really just settling into all of the knowledge into what it energetically feels like.
Mm. Yeah, and that's just a practice to keep on keeping on. We live in a culture where we automatically analyze something and then reconcile, but we forget to notice it first, sense it out, and then feel it. Then analyzing and reconciling whatever it is that you're sitting, standing, running, walking, swimming with. So I just want to take a few moments to close your eyes and just notice
I'm good.
what's within you, maybe physically in your body, maybe in your head. Sense those sensations. And allow yourself to feel them. And now, after feeling, analyzing maybe where those feelings are coming from. And this process, we're going over it really fast. At my yoga teacher's training, we took a whole workshop on practicing this. I notice, I sense, I feel. I notice, I sense, I feel. I notice, I sense, I feel. Then I analyze and I reconcile. The 5 Bs are our best friends. We as individuals are our best resource, and everything that you need is within you. Your breath is your moving vehicle to your vitality and to your existence that helps your brain function, that helps your body function, that allows your heartbeat to be in rhythm. And all of these mechanisms together allow your belief to be in existence. That's in Crater Lake, another beautiful adventure that I was able to have. And that little island just kind of sort of reminded me of an individual practicing these 5 Bs. And microdosing helps us directly with the brain, as we've seen and talked a little bit about, and we'll be going more deeply into the next Sacred Mushroom Circle. We'll be talking about the neuroscience and how psilocybin interacts with the brain and the belief, how we are able to form new perspectives and new behaviors. And it can also, so doing that can also lead us to be more in tune with our breath, our body, and our heartbeat. I find that when I microdose, especially on a work day, I'm an entrepreneur of 5 different projects, and a lot of it's screen time, a lot of it's sedentary time. But if I microdose, I am more apt to get up, move my body, go for that sprint, get into the woods, find the time when I don't think that I have the time. And ultimately, it allows me to move with more agility and fluidity throughout my day. Coming back to microdosing in the first circle, we talked about the different protocols. We just named them, and now we're going to go over one of them. And I'm starting off with the most practice in my communities, and the one that I love the most, and it's the Stamets stack. Paul Stamets is a famous mycologist. For those of you that weren't here for the first mushroom circle, one great way to be introduced to this man is watching Fantastic Fungi, and he really also advocates for listening to the indigenous communities, which is great. And so what the Stamets stack is it's adding, so psilocybin, there's usually 200 milligrams of psilocybin, adding 200 milligrams of lion's mane and niacin, and doing this 5 days on, 2 days off. I like the 5 days on, 2 days off because they're 7 days a week, and it allows me to have consistency in my practice, and I have a better time keeping track of time. Lion's mane is a beautiful mushroom that is local to the East Coast. It's very hard to find, but it's a beautiful one. And then niacin helps the psilocybin and the other adaptogenics to be released into your body at a evenly, I should say. So Paul Stamets has demonstrated that lion's mane helps with mild cognitive impairment and nerve growth factor, sort of the same thing as psilocybin, but in different minute ways. It's shown to help Alzheimer's, prevent Alzheimer's, and as this says, the niacin acts to enhance how it's carried over through our blood-brain barrier and distributes the mushroom molecules to our serotonin receptors. And this is a picture of the summertime in the sun holding a product that I work with and help distribute. And in our capsules, we have the Paul Stamets stack plus reishi, and reishi is also a local mushroom that helps with your white cell blood count, which helps fight off bacteria, helps our immune system stay healthy, and it helps with inflammation. Going back to storytelling and trauma, I just thought I'd put myself on the spot and be vulnerable. So these are a few pictures of my teenagehood. I was self-run riot. I said, I don't care what you guys think, I'm gonna do it my way. And that was a part of the community and culture sickness. A lot of the kids were in the same boat that I was. You know, a car full of us every morning before school, we'd smoke blunts. After school, we'd smoke blunts. We'd put cough syrup in the blunts. I was tripping acid at 12 years old, drinking bottles of vodka. But all of that darkness brought so much light into my life and allows me to share with beautiful people like you. And this is what I'm like now. And it's from an accumulation of tools, including behavioral therapy, EMDR, meditation, walking the yogic pathway, learning how to be honest with myself through all of those tools, plus being a better communicator. And microdosing has been the biggest part of connecting all of my tools together in my day and age now. It's been about 8 months since I've been microdosing consistently. And my first time that I quit alcohol, I was 18 years old, and I took a year of not drinking after drinking heavily from like 13 to 17. And I'm on 6 months of no alcohol right now too. And yeah, I'll let Courtney kind of just touch upon maybe a little bit of the science and energetic healing that goes alongside of that.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing that and being vulnerable. It's through vulnerability we create the most beautiful connections of all. And I'd say that breath and movement are a really, really important tool with being vulnerable and being honest with ourselves and learning to trust ourselves again. And really settling into, I am here, I am safe, I am focused. I have that capacity to do this. So a couple of the tools being the breath ball that shrinks and expands with your breath as a guide to help you really monitor your inhales and exhales. Great for trauma is just shaking it all out, that body movement, releasing stuck points in the body. Breathing hugs, giving your body a huge, huge brain hug. Sometimes paired with the breath, I like to give my brain a actual physical hug, which really allows the front brain to play along with the whole equation. Nadi Shodhana, which we practiced last time around, that alternate nostril breath, really balancing the right and left hemispheres of the brain. And then meditation in its various beautiful forms, which we'll practice a little bit of a guided imagery meditation here shortly. But I really like this Catherine Dunham quote. Go within every day and find the inner strength so that the world will not blow out your candle. So, with that being said, I invite you to just take a deep breath in the nose and open and sigh it out the mouth.
Before we go into meditation, Courtney, do you mind if I lead us through these modalities of breathing to get us ready to sit for a little bit?
Sure.
Awesome. So if you feel it, let's stand up, get out of our seats for a moment, and just begin to shake the body, awaken the blood flow, and maybe allow your arms to wrap around your sides and go from side to side like a windmill, allowing your arms to be loose, looking over your shoulder, breathing deeply, moving in any way that your body is asking you. I notice, I sense, I feel. Opening up our arms to cactus. We'll arch our back. Inhale, look up. Exhale, bring your forearms together around your back. And just follow that with your breath. Inhale. At your own rhythm and pace, exhale, round. Inhale, arch, open up that heart. Exhale, round. 2 more. And meeting at center point for the breathing ball. So we're going to take our hands not quite together, but facing one another. We'll breathe in and the ball will expand like our diaphragm. Exhale, bring the ball together. A few more times. Two more times. And then we'll expand our arms out all the way. Inhale. Exhale, give yourself a hug. Exhale all the way. Inhale out. Exhale, give yourself a hug. Inhale. Exhale, hug. Inhale. Exhale, hug. And now just stay with that hug for a moment. Taking a moment to tell yourself that you love yourself, thanking yourself for showing up today with curiosity and presence. Thanking your body for all that it does, thanking your spirit for co-creating and being alive during this beautiful journey, thanking your body for all that it does, your mind. Then we'll come to Nadi Shodhana Pranayama, alternate nostril breathing. So we'll take our pointer finger and our middle finger to our center of our forehead, our pineal gland, our third eye, and bring our thumb out, and then your fourth, your ring finger out. So your thumb's on your right side, your ring finger's on your left side. You're gonna plug your right nostril, breathe in through your left nostril, hold at the top, plug that left nostril, exhale through your right nostril. Inhale through your right nostril. Exhale through your left. Inhale through left. Exhale through right. I invite you to close your eyes, relax your body, and keep it going for just a few more moments. Wrapping your hand, keeping our eyes closed, I'm going to turn it over to Courtney to lead us through a small meditation.
If you'd like to, I invite you to take a comfortable seat. Palms can be facing up to receive or down to focus on the wisdom within. I invite you to close your eyes again if you feel cozy doing so, or taking a comfortable gaze on a focal point ahead of you. And I invite you to imagine a place, either real or imaginary, where you can see yourself as safe and at peace. For some of us, this might be nature. This might be a building or a room that means something to us. Then, like vacation, or somewhere you've never been at all, like a fantasy place. Take a moment to really imagine yourself in that space and feeling that energy of peace surrounding you. What is this place like? What do you see there in your surroundings? Are there sounds? Can you hear anything in the room, in the space? Are there smells? An aroma that's comforting, that makes us smile, turn the corners of our mouth up, and brings us great joy. Is there something to taste? Perhaps your safe space involves eating of some kind. What does that feel like? What kind of light does the room or space have? Is it bright? Is it dimly lit? Or somewhere in between? How cold or warm does the space feel? How does that feel on your body, on your skin? Is there air movement? And last but certainly not least, how do you envision yourself in that space? Maybe you're seated as you are now. Maybe you're relaxed, laying down. Maybe you're doing something energetic that you enjoy in that space. And taking a deep moment of gratitude for what this real or imaginary space and coming to this space in your mind brings you. Perhaps you want to keep that access to the space personal and sacred. Perhaps you want to imagine your space is in a secret location. Perhaps in order to enter your space, there's a secret code. That only you know. Leaving this space beautiful, pristine, untouched, and exactly as it's restorative for you. And remind yourself that you can return to this space anytime you feel even the least bit unsettled. Taking another deep breath in the nose and sighing out the mouth. And allowing the eyes to flicker open or to rejoin gaze in front of us. And just taking a moment now together to notice what's different, if anything, for you.
That was really lovely. Thank you.
Mhm.
We went over a bit over time today, and I hope that it was worth it for all of you all y'all. It's such a gift and beautiful opportunity to co-create the space, and we wouldn't be here doing it without you. Although Courtney and I do get together beforehand and have a great time preparing. So I invite you to, if you have any reflections, epiphanies, questions, shares, please.
Well, congrats on 6 months. That's hard.
Thank you.
I have, I think, like a year and a half. I haven't really been counting, but
Amazing. Yay.
That's very beautiful. Congrats to you as well.
thanks.
It's not easy when it's a dominant thing in our culture.
Yeah, no, it was pretty hard. That's why I don't really know how long it's been because it took a long time and I was like counting time and then I kind of just gave up trying and then that's when it got easier.
Yeah, let it flow naturally.
Yeah, I love the phrase where the focus goes, energy flows. We're focused on succeeding all the time. Sometimes it's really hard. If we're focused on the process, sometimes it just becomes a little easier, breath by breath, day by day, moment by moment. Like that's my experience.
Well, if you have any questions, oh, go ahead, Courtney.
No, I was really, really moved by you talking about hiking for a long time. You think you were talking about your grandfather doing so, hiking for a while, picking a spot that's familiar or unfamiliar to you, and just staying and letting what speaks speak. because I just, that's been a really, really powerful, beautiful part of my journey, especially with incorporating mushrooms. And really thinking that, especially with spaces you've been to before, thinking you know a space, or thinking, I have some familiarity with some of the things that are in this environment. And the longer you sit there, the more it reveals to you how little you know. And I think that that's been just amazingly, amazingly powerful for me. So that was just lovely to hear that other people are having that experience too.
Yeah, the sit spot, and to journal afterwards too, and keep a little record of what came up inside and what you noticed outside. It's an amazing tool to go back and reflect on.
And I would add to the part about learning the land you're on is like one of my favorite things to do is, especially now that it's spring, is learn where different wildflowers pop up. And I go to like the same spots every spring now, and I like finding new spots. But like Robinson Woods in Cape Elizabeth, there's a trail that has just tons of lady slippers that come up. And then there's a trail in Scarborough that has tons of skunk cabbage, which sounds gross, but the flowers are really cool looking. So just I like to find where certain native plants, are populous.
Yeah, I want to pick your brain more about that, Chandler, and share spots if you're open to it.
Yeah, of course.
Awesome, thank you. Well, I suppose we will wrap this up by saying that we're going to have another Sacred Circle on, I believe, so not next Tuesday, but the Tuesday after. And it's going to be about neuroscience. I'll drop that link in the chat, and I'll also be sending out a reminder as it comes up. So on the 18th. Yeah. And this is a donation-based group. We're hoping, this is a second one, we're hoping to create a fund with donations to give accessibility for medicine for people who don't have the resources to buy the medicine. All right, going back to Zoom. Okay. I'm kind of old school sometimes. Stop screen share. There we go. Here's the chat, and there's the next meeting. Awesome. It was lovely to see all of you, and thanks for showing up.
It was an honor to hold space with all of you. Have a blessed day.
Take care.